Welcome to this explainer. I am so pumped you're here today because we are diving headfirst into what might be the most incredibly dramatic, high-stakes narrative in ancient history. Let's just jump right into it, shall we? We are unpacking the wild events of Esther chapter 8, specifically focusing on a theme we're calling the persistent plea and the great reversal. We're going to see exactly how one person's refusal to just sit back and accept the status quo completely altered the fate of an entire nation.
To really grasp the magnitude of what we're talking about here, we have to ask ourselves, what actually goes down during the most chaotic, high-stakes 24 hours in the entire history of the Persian Empire? We are talking about a dizzying amount of tension. In just a single day, we witness absolute power reversals, shocking executions, and massive transfers of wealth. It's a historical thriller that moves at breakneck speed.
All right, Section 1, Day of Dramatic Reversals. Let's break down exactly what happened in this wild window of time.
It's literally like a movie timeline. In the morning, Mordecai, a guy who is quite literally marked for execution, is instead publicly honored. And get this, the parade is actually led by his absolute worst enemy, Haman. Then, bam, by midday during Queen Esther's banquet, Haman's evil mastermind plot to wipe out Esther's people is completely exposed. The king is furious and orders Haman to be hanged on the exact same gallows he built for Mordecai. Poetic justice, right? But it doesn't stop there. By the afternoon, the king takes Haman's vast estate and hands it entirely over to Queen Esther. And finally, as evening falls, Esther reveals her family ties to Mordecai. And the king takes his signet ring, basically the ultimate VIP pass of royal authority that he'd previously given to Haman, and passes it right to Mordecai. Within hours, the oppressed suddenly become the empowered.
Section 2. The lingering deadly threat. Because here's the catch. Despite Esther and Mordecai's newfound safety and staggering wealth, there is still a massive crisis ticking in the background.
To really get why this was so terrifying, we've got to talk numbers. Haman didn't just ask for a decree to destroy the Jewish people, he threw down a colossal bribe to make it happen. According to historical estimates based on the source material, that bribe of 6.8 million taels of silver represented roughly 2/3, a massive 66% of the entire Persian Empire's annual revenue. And remember, the empire was bleeding cash after the Greco-Persian Wars. So the king's hesitation to just step in and stop this, it wasn't just royal pride, it was cold, hard financial reality. Could the king really afford to walk away from that kind of money?
Which brings us to a major turning point. Section 3. The Queen's persistent plea. Esther finds herself at this pivotal crossroads where she has to make a monumental choice between her own comfort and immense danger. You really have to ask yourself, why on earth would she risk her life again when she's finally safe? Seriously, think about it. Her personal enemy is dead. She just inherited a jaw-dropping estate. Her cousin Mordecai is now the second most powerful man in the empire. She's got it all: wealth, status, guaranteed security. But Esther realizes the real fight isn't over. That deadly decree to destroy her people is still out there, ticking like a time bomb. So she's staring at this incredible contrast. Over here, on the one hand, she has total personal security. She could totally just sit back, keep her wealth, and stay perfectly safe. But on the other side, community salvation. To save her people, she's got to risk execution all over again by approaching the king uninvited. It's a real all-in moment. Her personal salvation and comfort suddenly don't matter to her anymore. She is completely burdened by the impending doom of her community. It's an unbelievable display of faith and sacrifice.
And that leads us to this incredibly emotional anchor in the text. Esther falls right at the king's feet, weeping, and she cries out, "How can I bear to see my people suffer? How can I bear to see my family killed?" She isn't just dropping a casual suggestion in the royal suggestion box here. This is a persistent plea. She's in tears, completely refusing to let her people perish while she sits safely in a palace. She literally becomes this fierce intercessor for her community.
So how does the king respond? Section 4. The king's great reversal. He comes up with a surprisingly royal solution.
Now, before he acts, we've got to understand the legal nightmare the king is actually in. By definition, a Persian decree is an edict written in the king's name and sealed with his signet ring. And once that happens, it legally cannot be revoked by anyone, not even the king himself. There is no undo button here. If he just canceled it, he'd be admitting his previous decision was wrong, which would completely shatter his royal prestige and violate the very laws of the empire. But since he can't revoke it, he pulls off this brilliant workaround.
He basically tells Esther and Mordecai, look, I gave you Haman's estate, I took out your enemy, now take my signet ring and write a brand new decree in my name however you see fit. He completely empowers Mordecai to draft an overriding counter-decree. This new law legally allows the Jewish people to arm and protect themselves against anyone who tries to attack them. It's a massive loophole, right? He provides a genuine path to salvation without breaking a single law of the land.
And that brings us to the application for us today. Section 5. Real enemies aren't people. Because while this historical palace intrigue is fascinating, there's a huge, incredibly practical lesson for us here.
We all do this, right? We think our biggest problems are physical enemies. You know, that difficult boss, toxic coworkers, or, let's be honest, frustrating relatives. We tell ourselves, man, if I just switch jobs, life will be perfect. But the source text points out something profound. Our true battles aren't actually against flesh and blood, they're against spiritual enemies, deeper, invisible dark forces. The real threats are so much more profound than just the people annoying us on a daily basis.
Which leads us to Section 6. Fighting for our families. Because we really need to learn how to become modern, persistent pleaders, just like Esther.
The source material actually calls out several of these modern invisible enemies that are attacking our homes right now. We're talking about youth completely consumed by internet and gaming addiction, or a whole generation facing such severe burnout that they're choosing to just lie flat and deal with crushing loneliness. What about broken family relationships that are full of resentment and just won't heal? Or workplaces totally poisoned by toxicity, constant gossip, and endless rivalry. These are our modern decrees, and just like Esther, we literally cannot afford to just stand on the sidelines and watch.
So how do we actually fight back? Well, the text gives us 3 super clear, actionable steps to combat these modern battles. Step 1, continuous prayer. This means relying on a deeper spiritual strength instead of just white-knuckling it with our own willpower. Step 2, hold on to truth, basically anchoring ourselves in enduring faith when the environment around us feels totally chaotic. And step 3, loving companionship. This is huge. It means actively standing with the people who are struggling, fighting for them with active love instead of just sitting back and judging them.
Which leaves us with this profoundly challenging question to wrap up our explainer today. When you look at Esther, someone who threw her own personal safety totally out the window because she refused to watch her people perish, I want you to ask yourself, what are you no longer willing to bear? What brokenness in your family, your workplace, or your community stirs up that exact same persistent, unwilling to give up heart inside of you? Let this incredible story of the persistent plea and the great reversal inspire you to step up, stand in the gap, and fight for those who need it most. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer today, and I'll catch you next time.